The words hit me like ice water thrown in my face. I sat frozen at my parents' dinner table, my fork halfway to my mouth, as my mother's voice echoed in the suddenly silent dining room. "You're not half the woman your sister is, Zara. Look at Natalie, she knows how to keep a man happy. Maybe if you learned from her, Robert wouldn't need to look elsewhere for what he's missing at home." The roast beef turned to sawdust in my mouth. Around the table, 6 pairs of eyes stared at me with different emotions. My father nodded in agreement. My sister Natalie shifted uncomfortably, her perfectly manicured fingers playing with her wine glass. My husband Robert sat beside me, and I could feel the tension radiating from his body. But it was the look that passed between Natalie and Robert that stopped my heart cold. A flash of guilt, of shared secrets, of something I had been too blind to see. I pushed my chair back slowly, the screech against the hardwood floor cutting through the heavy silence. Everyone was still staring, waiting to see what I would do. My mother had that satisfied look she always wore when she thought she had taught me a lesson. My father was already reaching for more wine, as if the matter was settled. "Excuse me," I said quietly, standing up on shaking legs. "Zara, sit down," my mother commanded. "We're having a family discussion." "No," I said, my voice stronger now. "We're not." I walked to the living room where I had left my purse, my heart pounding so hard I thought it might explode. Behind me I heard Robert's chair scrape back. "Honey, where are you going?" His voice was tight, worried. I turned around to face him, and for the first time in our 3 years of marriage I really looked at my husband. The way his eyes kept darting to Natalie. The way he ran his hand through his hair when he was nervous about getting caught in a lie. The way he couldn't quite meet my eyes. "How long?" I asked simply. "What?" But his face had gone pale. "How long have you and my sister been sleeping together?" The silence that followed was deafening. In the dining room someone dropped a fork. My mother gasped. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. But it was Natalie who spoke first, her voice small and guilty. "Zara, it's not what you think." "Really?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Because what I think is that my own family has been covering for my husband's affair with my sister. What I think is that everyone in this room knew except me. What I think is that I've been living a lie for months, maybe years." Robert stepped forward, his hands raised like he was approaching a wild animal. "Zara, let me explain." "Explain what?" "That you've been cheating on me with Natalie? That my parents think so little of me they believe I deserve it? That my sister is such a good woman she steals her sister's husband?" "You're being dramatic," my mother snapped from the doorway. "Marriage is work, Zara. If you had put in more effort, if you had been more like Natalie, this wouldn't have happened." I stared at the woman who had given birth to me, who had raised me, who was supposed to love me unconditionally. Instead, she was standing there defending the people who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. "More like Natalie?" I repeated slowly. "You mean more like a woman who sleeps with her sister's husband?" "It just happened," Natalie said, tears streaming down her face. "We didn't plan it. We fought it for so long, but the connection between us was too strong." "How romantic," I said flatly. "When did it start?" She glanced at Robert, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the floor. "Your birthday party," she whispered. "Last year." My birthday party. The one where Robert had disappeared for an hour and came back claiming he had to take an important work call. The one where Natalie had been quiet all evening, avoiding eye contact. The one where I had felt like something was wrong but convinced myself I was being paranoid. "A whole year," I said, more to myself than to them. "You've been lying to me for a whole year." "We wanted to tell you," Robert said desperately. "But we didn't want to hurt you." "Didn't want to hurt me?" I laughed again, and this time it sounded a little hysterical even to my own ears. "You've been having an affair for a year, and you didn't want to hurt me?" "We love each other," Natalie said defiantly, her tears stopping. "I'm sorry you're hurt, but you can't help who you fall in love with." "No," I agreed. "But you can help what you do about it. You could have talked to me. You could have ended it. You could have been honest. Instead, you chose to sneak around behind my back and make me feel crazy for suspecting something was wrong." My father finally spoke up. "Zara, maybe it's for the best. You and Robert weren't really suited for each other anyway." "Is that so?" I turned to look at him. "And who exactly decided that?" "Because I thought we were happy. I thought we were building a life together." "Come on, honey," my mother said with exaggerated patience. "You had to have known something was wrong. Robert hasn't been happy in months." "He seemed happy enough when we made love last week," I said bluntly, watching both Robert and Natalie flinch. "Or when he told me he loved me yesterday morning." The room fell silent again. I looked around at these people who were supposed to be my family, who were supposed to have my back no matter what. Instead, they had all chosen to protect each other from my feelings rather than protect me from their betrayal. I picked up my purse and walked toward the door. "Where are you going?" Robert called after me. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob and turned back one last time. Robert looked panicked. Natalie was crying again. My parents looked uncomfortable but not apologetic. "I'm going home," I said calmly. "And you're going to pack your things and get out." "Zara, wait," Robert started toward me. "We can work this out. We can go to counseling. I'll end it with Natalie, I promise." "No," I said firmly. "We can't work this out. And you don't need to end it with Natalie." I looked directly at my sister. "Congratulations. You won. You can have him." I walked out of my parents' house and didn't look back. Behind me I could hear Robert calling my name, but I kept walking to my car. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. As I drove away, I caught a glimpse of myself in the rearview mirror. My face was calm, composed even. But my eyes looked different. Harder. Like something fundamental had shifted inside me. I had spent my whole life trying to be the good daughter, the good wife, the good sister. I had put everyone else's needs before my own. I had made myself small so others could feel big. But as I drove through the city streets toward the house I had shared with Robert, I felt something new growing inside me. It wasn't anger exactly. It was something colder, more determined. It was the absolute certainty that I was done being the woman everyone thought they could walk all over. I was done being compared to my sister. I was done accepting less than I deserved. I was going to show them exactly what kind of woman I really was. I sat in my car outside the house for 20 minutes, staring at the front door I had painted bright blue last spring. Robert had complained about the color, said it was too bold for the neighborhood. I had changed it anyway, one of the few times I had stood my ground. Now I realized it might have been a sign of things to come. My phone buzzed constantly with calls and texts. Robert, Natalie, my mother. I turned it off without reading any of the messages. Inside the house, everything looked exactly the same, but it all felt different now. The wedding photos on the mantle seemed to mock me. The couch where Robert and I had cuddled watching movies on Sunday mornings felt like a lie. Even the kitchen where I had made his favorite breakfast just that morning felt contaminated. I poured myself a glass of wine and sat at the kitchen table, trying to process what had just happened. My marriage was over. My relationship with my family was over. In the span of one dinner, my entire life had fallen apart. But as I sat there, pieces started clicking into place. The late nights at work that became more frequent. The way Robert had stopped telling me he loved me unless I said it first. The times I had called his office and been told he was in meetings that I later found out he hadn't attended. The new cologne he started wearing 3 months ago. The way he had suddenly become very protective of his phone. And Natalie. God, how had I missed it with Natalie? The way she always asked about Robert when she called. The way she dressed up more when she knew we would see him. The way she had started canceling our sister dates, claiming she was busy with work. The way they both found excuses to touch each other when they thought I wasn't looking. I had noticed all of these things. I had felt that something was wrong. But every time I tried to bring it up, Robert made me feel like I was being paranoid and insecure. He was so good at it, so convincing, that I had started to believe there was something wrong with me for being suspicious. My wine glass was empty. I refilled it and walked upstairs to our bedroom. Robert's side of the closet told its own story now that I knew what to look for. New shirts I had never seen him wear at home. A receipt in his jacket pocket from a restaurant we had never been to together. His credit card bills, which he had started keeping in his briefcase instead of leaving them on the kitchen counter like he used to. I found his laptop in his desk drawer and powered it up. He had changed the password from our anniversary date to something I didn't know. But I knew Robert. He wasn't very creative. On the third try I got in. The password was Natalie's birthday. His email told the whole story. Months of messages between them, starting cautiously and growing bolder. Plans to meet for lunch. Hotel reservations. Photos I couldn't bear to look at for more than a second. But what hurt more than the affair itself were the things they said about me. Robert complaining that I was boring, that I never wanted to try new things, that I had let myself go since we got married. Natalie agreeing, saying she had always been the prettier sister, the more interesting one. There was an email from just last week where Robert talked about how guilty he felt lying to me, and Natalie's response, "She's not stupid, Robert. She has to suspect something by now. Maybe it's time to just tell her the truth so we can be together openly." Robert's reply, "Not yet. I need to make sure the divorce settlement won't ruin me first. Let me talk to a lawyer." A divorce settlement. He had been planning to leave me all along, but he wanted to make sure he protected his assets first. He had never intended to stay married to me. I was just an inconvenience to be managed until he could figure out how to get rid of me cheaply. I printed everything. Every email, every receipt, every photo that wasn't too explicit to use in court. I made copies and put them in a folder. Then I called my best friend from college, Simone, who lived across the country. Zara? It's 11 p.m. your time. What's wrong? I told her everything. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Oh honey, she said finally. I'm so sorry. What do you need? I need a place to think. Can I come stay with you for a week? Of course. Book a flight for tomorrow. I'll pick you up at the airport. After I hung up, I booked the flight and then started packing. Not everything, just enough for a week away. I left my wedding ring on Robert's pillow with a note that said simply, "Don't be here when I get back." As I was loading my suitcase into my car, my neighbor Mrs. Chen came outside to get her newspaper. Leaving town? She asked. For a few days, I said. She looked at me for a moment, her expression kind. I hope things work out for you, dear. You deserve better. I froze. What do you mean? Mrs. Chen glanced toward my house, then back at me. I've seen the woman coming and going when you're at work. I wasn't sure if you knew. My heart sank. Even the neighbors knew. How many other people had been watching my marriage fall apart from the outside while I lived in oblivious denial? Thank you for telling me, I said quietly. For what it's worth, she added, I never liked him much anyway. Too full of himself. I drove to the airport hotel and checked in for the night. In the morning, I would fly to California to stay with Simone and figure out what to do next. But tonight, I sat in the anonymous hotel room and let myself cry for the first time since dinner. I cried for the marriage I thought I had. I cried for the sister I thought loved me. I cried for the parents who had chosen sides without even considering mine. I cried for the naive woman I had been that morning, who thought she was loved and protected and valued. But somewhere around 3 a.m. the tears stopped. And in their place, something else began to grow. Something cold and determined and absolutely sure of what needed to happen next. Robert thought he was so smart, planning his divorce strategy in secret. Natalie thought she had won some kind of prize. My parents thought they had taught me a lesson about accepting my place. They had no idea what they had just unleashed. Simone met me at the airport with a hug that lasted a full minute and a box of tissues. You look like hell, she said bluntly as we walked to her car. Thanks. That's exactly what I needed to hear. I'm serious, Zara. When was the last time you ate? I couldn't remember. The airplane peanuts, maybe. Simone was a successful divorce lawyer in San Francisco, which I had forgotten when I called her in my desperate state. But now, sitting in her kitchen while she made scrambled eggs, I realized it might be the best possible thing that could have happened. Tell me again about the emails, she said, setting a plate in front of me. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I had taken of the printed emails. Her expression grew darker with each one. This is good, she said finally. This is very good. Good? For your case. The part about him consulting a lawyer about protecting his assets shows premeditation. The length of the affair establishes a pattern. And the things they said about you could support an emotional distress claim in some states. I stared at her. I haven't even thought about divorce yet. I mean, I know that's where this is heading, but... Honey, your husband has been planning to divorce you for months while carrying on an affair with your sister. The time for thinking about it is over. The question is whether you want to be the victim or the victor. The victor? Simone leaned forward. Do you want to crawl away from this quietly and let them have their happy ending while you start over with nothing? Or do you want to make sure they face consequences for what they've done? I thought about Robert's smug expression when he talked about protecting his assets. I thought about Natalie's tears that had dried up remarkably quickly once she realized she might actually get what she wanted. I thought about my parents' disappointed faces, like I was the one who had failed. I want consequences, I said quietly. Good. Then we're going to give you the divorce of the century. Over the next 3 days, Simone walked me through everything I needed to know. Robert's business was more vulnerable than I had realized. He was a partner in a consulting firm, and his reputation was everything. An ugly divorce with evidence of adultery could damage his professional standing. More importantly, he had made mistakes. Big ones. Look at this, Simone said, pointing to a bank statement I had found in his desk. He's been using joint accounts to pay for hotel rooms and gifts for your sister. That's marital waste. In your state, the court can make him pay back double what he spent on the affair. She helped me gather evidence systematically. Phone records that showed the frequency of calls between Robert and Natalie. Credit card statements that showed purchases I couldn't account for. Even social media posts that, when looked at together, told the story of their relationship. "This is important," she said, showing me a photo Natalie had posted on Instagram 6 months ago. She was wearing earrings I had never seen before, expensive ones, at a restaurant I recognized as the place Robert claimed to have a business dinner that same night. He bought those for her, I realized. With your money from your joint account. Add it to the list. By the end of the week, I had a complete picture of just how thoroughly I had been betrayed. But I also had a plan. I flew back home on Sunday night. Robert's car was in the driveway, but he wasn't alone. Natalie's car was there too. I sat in my car for a moment, steeling myself. Then I walked into my own house. They were on my couch watching a movie. Robert jumped up when he saw me, but Natalie stayed seated, her chin lifted defiantly. "Zara, thank God," Robert said. "I was worried sick. You wouldn't answer your phone." I needed to think. "And what did you decide?" I looked between them. Robert appeared nervous but hopeful. Natalie looked like she was preparing for a fight. "I've decided to file for divorce," I said calmly. Robert's face fell. "Zara, please. Can't we talk about this?" "There's nothing to talk about. I'll have my lawyer contact you this week." "Your lawyer?" Natalie spoke for the first time. "Zara, don't be dramatic. You two can work this out without lawyers getting involved." I almost smiled. Of course she wanted to avoid lawyers. Lawyers meant public records. Lawyers meant consequences. "I think lawyers are exactly what we need," I said. "Robert, I'd like you to get your things and move out. Today." "This is my house too," he said, his voice taking on an edge. "Actually, it's not." I pulled out a folder Simone had prepared for me. "It's in my name only. You're not on the deed or the mortgage. Legally, you're a guest here and I'm asking you to leave." Robert's face went white. He had forgotten that detail, probably because he never paid attention to the paperwork when we bought the house. I had handled all of it while he was busy with work. Busy with work. Right. "You can't just kick me out," he said. "I can and I am. You have 1 hour to pack your things." "Zara," Natalie stood up. "Be reasonable. Where is he supposed to go?" I looked at my sister, this woman who had shared secrets with my husband, who had conspired against me, who had helped destroy my marriage. "That's not my problem anymore," I said. "Maybe he can stay with you." Something flickered across Natalie's face. Fear, maybe. The reality of what they had done was starting to sink in. Robert tried a different approach. "Honey, I know you're hurt, but we can fix this. I'll do counseling. I'll do whatever you want. What I want is for you to leave my house. Our marriage doesn't have to end like this. Our marriage ended the moment you decided to sleep with my sister." I turned and walked upstairs, leaving them to figure out what to do next. In my bedroom, I changed into comfortable clothes and started stripping the sheets from the bed. Everything that had touched Robert's skin was going in the garbage. Downstairs, I could hear them talking in urgent whispers. 20 minutes later, Robert appeared in the doorway with a suitcase. "This isn't over, Zara?" "Yes, it is." After they left, I walked through the house and changed every lock. Then I sat in my kitchen with a glass of wine and called my office to tell them I would be taking personal time to deal with a family emergency. The next morning, I called the lawyer Simone had recommended in my city. His name was Thomas Mitchell, and he had a reputation for aggressive representation in high-asset divorces. "Mrs. Johnson," he said when I walked into his office. "Simone filled me in on your situation. I have to say, your husband made this very easy for us." "What do you mean?" "He documented everything. Most cheating spouses are careful about leaving evidence. Your husband kept receipts. Thomas outlined the strategy we would use. We would file for divorce citing adultery and emotional abuse. We would seek damages for marital waste. We would ask for spousal support and the majority of our joint assets." "What about his business?" I asked. Thomas smiled. "That's where this gets interesting. Did you know you helped build that business?" I frowned. "What do you mean?" "You used your savings to help him buy into the partnership. You supported him for 2 years while he built his client base. Under state law, you have a claim to a portion of the business value." I had completely forgotten about that money. It was $20,000 from my grandmother's estate, money I had gladly given Robert to help him achieve his dreams. Dreams that apparently included my sister. How much could that be worth? "His partnership is worth approximately $200,000. You could be entitled to half." I felt something dark and satisfying settle in my chest. Robert thought he was so smart, planning his divorce strategy in secret. But he had no idea what was coming. The papers were filed that Friday. By law, Robert had to be served within a certain time frame. Thomas arranged for process servers to find him at work, in front of his colleagues and clients. I wasn't there to see his face when he got the papers, but I imagined it was priceless. The war had begun, and this time I was the one with the battle plan. The call came at 7 a.m. on Monday morning. "Zara, what the hell is this?" Robert's voice was tight with barely controlled rage. 800,000 in spousal support? Half my business? Are you insane? I was making coffee in my peaceful kitchen, sunlight streaming through the windows I had insisted on enlarging last year despite Robert's complaints about the cost. "Good morning, Robert. You should probably have your lawyer call my lawyer from now on. Your lawyer is insane if he thinks he can get away with this. I'll fight this, Zara. I'll drag you through court for years before I pay you a penny. That's your choice. But you might want to think about what a long, public court battle will do to your business reputation." Silence on the other end of the line. Robert was many things, but he wasn't stupid. His consulting firm dealt with high-end corporate clients who valued discretion and family stability. A messy divorce with adultery allegations would not look good. "You're different," he said finally, his voice quieter now. "Yes, I am. I never meant to hurt you. But you did hurt me. For a year, Robert. Every day for a year you looked me in the eye and lied to me. You made me feel crazy for suspecting what was happening. You stole from our joint accounts to buy gifts for my sister. You planned to divorce me while pretending to love me. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I have the emails to prove it." Another long silence. "What do you want?" he asked. "I want you to face consequences for your choices. I want my sister to face consequences for hers. And I want to move on with my life without either of you in it." I hung up and blocked his number. My phone rang again immediately. "Natalie. Zara, we need to talk." "No, we don't. You can't destroy Robert's life because you're angry. I'm not destroying anything. I'm simply asking for what I'm legally entitled to after 3 years of marriage and a year of being betrayed." He made a mistake. He made a choice. So did you. I'm your sister. Those 4 words hung in the air between us. Once, they would have been enough to make me reconsider, to forgive, to put family loyalty above my own well-being. "You stopped being my sister the moment you decided to sleep with my husband," I said calmly. "Don't call me again." I blocked her number too. By Wednesday, Robert had retained his own lawyer, someone who immediately called Thomas to complain about our unreasonable demands. Thomas listened politely and then sent over copies of all the evidence we had compiled. His lawyer called back an hour later, Thomas reported. Much more reasonable tone. "They want to negotiate." "What are they offering?" 30,000 in spousal support, 10% of the business value, and they keep the car." "What car?" "The BMW you bought him for his birthday last year." I laughed. I actually laughed. "They want to keep the car I bought him? That's what they're asking for." Counteroffer. 50,000 in spousal support, 30% of the business, I keep the car in the house, and he pays all legal fees. Thomas grinned. "I like the way you think." While the lawyers negotiated, I focused on building my new life. I had been so focused on being Mrs. Robert Johnson that I had forgotten who Zara was. I started by redecorating the house. The beige walls Robert preferred were painted in bold colors. The living room became a warm coral. The bedroom became a soothing sage green. I bought new furniture, bright and modern instead of the traditional pieces Robert had insisted on. I also threw away everything that reminded me of him or my family. Wedding photos, gifts from my parents, the jewelry Robert had given me over the years. It all went in the garbage or to charity. My work had always been secondary to Robert's career, but now I threw myself into it completely. I was a graphic designer for a marketing firm, and I had always been good at my job. But I had turned down promotions and big projects because Robert didn't want me traveling or working late hours. Now I said yes to everything. I pitched new clients. I volunteered for the projects that would showcase my skills. Within a month, my boss called me into her office. "Zara, I don't know what's gotten into you lately, but I like it," Linda said. "The work you did on the Harrison account was exceptional. I'm recommending you for a promotion to senior designer." The promotion came with a 20% raise in my own office. For the first time in years, I felt proud of something I had accomplished. I also started making new friends. Without Robert's social calendar dictating my free time, I joined a book club at the local library. I took a pottery class on Thursday nights. I started hiking on weekends with a group I found through an app. These people didn't know about my failed marriage or my dysfunctional family. They knew me as Zara, the woman who made them laugh during book discussions and who always brought the best snacks to pottery class. 2 months after I filed for divorce, I ran into Natalie at the grocery store. She looked terrible, tired and stressed, her usually perfect appearance disheveled. "Zara," she said, blocking my path with her cart. "Please. Can we just talk for 5 minutes?" "Move your cart, Natalie." Robert lost the Peterson account. His business partner is furious. This divorce is ruining him. Good. How can you say that? You used to love him. I loved who I thought he was. That person never existed. He's a good man who made a mistake. A good man doesn't cheat on his wife for a year while planning to divorce her in secret. A good man doesn't steal money from joint accounts to buy gifts for his mistress. Natalie flinched. It wasn't stealing. It was his money too. Money he spent on you instead of on our household expenses. Money that should have gone into our savings for the future we were supposedly building together. You're being vindictive. I looked at my sister, this woman who had once been my closest friend, who had shared clothes and secrets and dreams with me. You're right, I said. I am being vindictive. And you know what? It feels great. I pushed past her and continued my shopping. In the checkout line I realized I was smiling. That night Thomas called with good news. They've agreed to $45,000 in spousal support, 25% of the business value, you keep the house and the car, and they pay all legal fees. What changed their minds? Robert's business partner found out about the affair and the divorce. Apparently, he's not happy about the negative publicity. He's threatening to dissolve the partnership unless Robert settles quickly and quietly. It was more money than I had ever imagined having. Enough to completely start over. Enough to go back to school if I wanted to. Enough to travel, to take risks, to build whatever life I chose. Accept it, I said. You're sure? We could probably push for more. I'm sure. I don't want to be tied to him any longer than necessary. The divorce will be final in 30 days. After I hung up, I sat in my beautiful coral living room and tried to remember the last time I had felt this happy. Not the fake happiness of pretending everything was fine, but real, deep satisfaction with my life and choices. I couldn't remember ever feeling this way when I was married. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "This is James from your hiking group. Would you like to get coffee sometime?" I stared at the message for a long moment. James was the quiet one in our group, the one with the kind smile who always made sure everyone made it safely down the trail. He was attractive in an understated way, and I had caught myself noticing how he treated people with gentle respect. But I wasn't ready for dating. I was barely ready for being single. Then I thought about what Robert would say if he knew someone was asking me out. He would probably assume I couldn't handle being alone, that I needed a man to take care of me. "I'd like that," I texted back. It was just coffee. But it was also a choice I was making for myself, without considering what anyone else wanted or expected from me. It felt like freedom. Coffee with James turned into dinner, which turned into long walks through the city, which turned into the kind of easy friendship I had forgotten was possible between a man and a woman. "You're different from what I expected," James said one evening as we sat on a bench overlooking the river. "How so?" "When you first joined the hiking group, you seemed guarded. Like you were afraid to take up too much space. But over the past few months, you've become more yourself." "More myself." He smiled. Louder laughs. Stronger opinions. "You argue with people now when you disagree instead of just nodding along." I realized he was right. In my marriage, I had learned to make myself smaller, quieter, more agreeable. I had thought that was what love looked like, adapting yourself to fit what someone else needed. But with James, I could be exactly who I was. When he suggested a movie I didn't want to see, I said so. When he asked where I wanted to eat, I gave my actual preference instead of saying, "Wherever you want is fine." When we disagreed about politics or books or whether hiking in the rain was fun or miserable, we debated it openly. "I like the real you," James said quietly. "I'm still figuring out who that is." "That's okay. I'm patient." Patient. When was the last time someone had been patient with me? Robert had been demanding, critical, always pushing me to be someone different. My parents had been disappointed when I wasn't enough like Natalie. Even Natalie had been impatient with my attempts to maintain our relationship once her affair started. But James seemed genuinely interested in watching me discover who I was becoming. My divorce was finalized on a Tuesday in November. I took the day off work and went to the courthouse alone by choice. Thomas offered to accompany me, but I wanted to experience this moment by myself. "Congratulations," the judge said after signing the final papers. "You're free to remarry if you choose." Free. That was exactly how I felt. I drove to the beach an hour outside the city and walked along the shore, thinking about everything that had led to this moment. A year ago, I had been living a lie, married to a man who didn't respect me, trying desperately to win approval from family members who had already decided I wasn't good enough. Now I owned my own house. I had money in the bank. I had a job I loved and friends who valued me. I had James who saw me clearly and liked what he saw. My phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized it as my parents' area code. I had blocked their original numbers, but they had found other ways to contact me periodically. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello, Zara? My mother's voice was smaller than I remembered. What do you want? We heard about the divorce being final. And? We think maybe we should talk. As a family. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. We're not a family anymore. Zara, please. Natalie she's having a hard time. I don't care. Robert left her. He said the divorce made him realize he wasn't ready for another serious relationship. She's heartbroken. I felt a flash of vindictive satisfaction, followed immediately by something that might have been pity. But not enough pity to fix this. She made her choice, I said. We all make mistakes. Sleeping with your sister's husband isn't a mistake. It's a betrayal. And so was choosing to support her instead of me. We thought we were helping you see reality. Reality is that your daughter destroyed my marriage and you helped her do it. Reality is that you decided I deserved to be cheated on because I wasn't good enough. Reality is that you're only calling now because her plan didn't work out the way she wanted. That's not true. It is true. If Robert had left me for her and they had lived happily ever after, would you be calling me now to make amends? Silence on the other end of the line. I thought so, I said. Don't call me again. I hung up and blocked that number too. Back home, I found James sitting on my front porch with takeout bags from my favorite Thai restaurant. How did the courthouse go? He asked. It went well. How did you know I'd be hungry? Because you never eat when you're stressed, and today was a big day. He knew me. Not the version of me I thought I should be or the version someone else wanted me to be, but the actual me with all my quirks and habits and flaws. Over dinner, he asked what I wanted to do to celebrate. I want to travel, I said without thinking. I've never been anywhere by myself. Where do you want to go? Europe, maybe? I've always wanted to see Italy. James smiled. So go. Just like that. Why not? You have money saved. You have vacation time. You're single and free to do whatever you want. The idea was both thrilling and terrifying. Robert had always managed our travel, choosing destinations that interested him and making all the arrangements. The thought of planning an entire trip by myself felt enormous, but also exciting. Maybe I will, I said. I think you should. That night after James went home, I sat at my computer researching flights to Rome. Within an hour, I had booked a 2-week trip to Italy for January. I would see the Colosseum, the Vatican, the canals of Venice. I would eat gelato for breakfast and drink wine with lunch and not worry about whether anyone else approved of my choices. I called Simone to tell her about the divorce being final and the trip I had planned. I'm so proud of you, she said. You've become a completely different person from the woman who called me crying 9 months ago. I feel like a different person. You are a different person. The woman you were before was what happened when you spent years trying to please everyone except yourself. This is who you really are. After we hung up, I looked around my house, not our house, and felt deep satisfaction. The coral walls glowed warmly in the lamplight. My books were arranged the way I liked them. My art supplies were spread across the dining room table because I had started painting again, something I had given up when Robert complained about the mess. I had built this life from nothing. When Robert left, when my family abandoned me, when everything fell apart, I had picked up the pieces and created something entirely new. And it was better. So much better than what I had before. My phone buzzed with a text from James. Sleep well. Tomorrow we'll start planning your Italian adventure. I smiled and texted back, looking forward to it. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, I was genuinely excited about the future. Not because someone else was in it, but because I was in it. Because I finally knew who I was and what I wanted. And what I wanted was everything I had never allowed myself to have before. 2 weeks before my Italy trip, I got a call that changed everything. Ms. Johnson? This is Patricia Williams. I'm Robert's former business partner. I nearly dropped the phone. Patricia Williams was a legend in the consulting world, known for her sharp mind and ethical business practices. I had met her once at a company Christmas party, but we had barely spoken. Ms. Williams? How can I help you? I wonder if we could meet for lunch. There are some things about Robert's business practices that I think you should know. We met at an upscale restaurant downtown. Patricia was exactly as I remembered, immaculately dressed, intimidatingly intelligent, and direct in a way that commanded respect. "First," she said after we ordered, "I want to apologize for not speaking up sooner. I suspected Robert was having personal problems that were affecting his work, but I didn't realize the extent of his deception." "What do you mean?" Patricia pulled out a folder and placed it on the table between us. "After your divorce became public, I did some investigating into Robert's recent business dealings. What I found was concerning." She opened the folder and showed me financial records, client communications, and what appeared to be billing statements. "Robert has been overbilling clients," she said. "Significantly. He's been charging for hours he didn't work, expenses he didn't incur, and services we didn't provide." I stared at the documents. "How long has this been going on?" "At least a year. Possibly longer. The same time frame as his affair with Natalie." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because some of those false billings were done using work that you contributed to the company." "What?" Patricia turned to another page in the folder. "Remember the marketing presentation you helped Robert create for the Henderson account 2 years ago? The one where you designed all the graphics and helped write the copy?" I nodded. I had spent weeks on that presentation, working evenings and weekends because Robert was stressed about landing such a big client. Robert has been licensing modified versions of that presentation to other clients, claiming he developed it himself. He's made over $50,000 on work you did for free. My mouth fell open. Not only had Robert cheated on me and stolen from our joint accounts, he had also stolen my work and profited from it. "I've dissolved our partnership," Patricia continued. "I can't be associated with this level of ethical violation. But before I cut ties completely, I wanted to make sure you knew about the intellectual property theft." "Can I do anything about it?" "You can sue him. You have a clear case for copyright infringement and unjust enrichment." Patricia slid a business card across the table. "This is my lawyer. She specializes in intellectual property cases. Tell her I sent you." After lunch, I sat in my car for 20 minutes trying to process what I had learned. Robert's betrayal went so much deeper than adultery. He had been systematically deceiving everyone: me, his business partner, his clients. He had built his success on lies and stolen work. I called Thomas immediately. "This is good," he said after I explained what Patricia had told me. "Very good. We can file a separate lawsuit for the intellectual property theft." "How much are we talking about?" "If we can prove he made $50,000 using your work, you could be entitled to all of it plus punitive damages. Possibly more if there's other work he's stolen." That evening, James found me on my couch, surrounded by papers and documents Patricia had given me. "You look like you're planning a military campaign," he said. "I kind of am." I told him about Patricia's revelations and the potential new lawsuit. "Are you sure you want to go through all this again?" he asked gently. "You've already won the divorce. You've moved on. Why reopen old wounds?" It was a fair question. The smart thing might be to let it go, to enjoy my new life without looking backward. But I thought about all the other women Robert might deceive in the future. I thought about the clients he had cheated, the trust he had violated, the career he had built on stolen work and false billing. "Because he's still out there lying to people," I said. "And if I don't stop him, who will?" James nodded slowly. "Then I'll support whatever you decide to do." The intellectual property lawsuit was filed the following week. Unlike the divorce, which Robert had been able to keep relatively quiet, this case became public record immediately. Within days, local business publications picked up the story. "Consulting firm founder accused of billing fraud and IP theft," read one headline. Robert's remaining clients began calling to ask questions. Several of them hired independent auditors to review their billing statements. 2 of them filed complaints with the state licensing board. My phone rang constantly with reporters wanting statements, but Thomas advised me to say nothing publicly. "Let the evidence speak for itself," he said. Meanwhile, I continued preparing for my Italy trip. The timing felt perfect. I would be out of the country while the media attention died down, and I would return to whatever resolution the lawsuit had reached. 3 days before my departure, Natalie showed up at my office. Security called to ask if I wanted to see her. I almost said no, but curiosity got the better of me. She looked worse than she had at the grocery store months earlier. Her skin was pale, her hair unwashed, her clothes wrinkled. She looked like someone who hadn't been sleeping. "What do you want, Natalie?" "Please drop the lawsuit." "Which one?" "The new one. The business one. Robert is talking about bankruptcy. He might go to jail." "Good. Zara, please. I know you're angry at me, But don't destroy him because of our relationship. This has nothing to do with your relationship. This is about him stealing my work and defrauding his clients. You're doing this for revenge. I'm doing this for justice. There's a difference. Natalie started crying, the same manipulative tears she had used our entire childhood to get out of trouble. I'm sorry, okay? I'm sorry I hurt you. I'm sorry about the affair. I'm sorry about everything. Please just stop this. Where was this apology 6 months ago? Where was it when you were in my house on my couch, telling me you couldn't help who you fell in love with? I was confused. I was caught up in something I didn't understand. You were 32 years old, Natalie. Not 16. You knew exactly what you were doing. Please don't let him go to jail. I looked at my sister, this person who had once been the most important relationship in my life. I felt nothing. Not anger, not pity, not satisfaction. Just nothing. Robert's legal problems are the result of his own choices, I said. Just like your problems are the result of yours. What's happened to you? She whispered. You used to be so kind. I used to be a doormat, I corrected. There's a difference. Security escorted her out. I watched from my office window as she walked to her car, shoulders shaking with sobs. I felt a brief moment of something that might have been sadness. Not for her pain but for the relationship we used to have. For the sister who might have existed if she had made different choices. But it passed quickly. I had learned the hard way that you can't save people from the consequences of their own actions. And more importantly, you shouldn't sacrifice yourself trying to do it. That evening, James helped me finish packing for Italy. Any regrets about the lawsuit? He asked. None whatsoever. What about your sister? What about her? She seemed pretty desperate today. I considered his question seriously. James was kind-hearted, always looking for ways to give people the benefit of the doubt. But he also understood that kindness without boundaries was just enabling. Natalie made a choice to have an affair with my husband, I said finally. She made a choice to lie to me for a year. She made a choice to support Robert over me when the truth came out. Now she's dealing with the consequences of those choices. That's not my responsibility to fix. James nodded. You're right. I just wanted to make sure you were at peace with it. I am. And I was. For the first time in my life, I was choosing my own well-being over everyone else's comfort. It felt revolutionary. 2 days later, I was on a plane to Rome, ready to discover what it felt like to be completely free. Italy was a revelation. For 2 weeks, I wandered through ancient streets, ate incredible food, and talked to strangers without worrying about what anyone back home thought about my choices. In Florence, I spent an entire day in the Uffizi Gallery, standing in front of paintings that took my breath away. In Venice, I got deliberately lost in the maze of canals and discovered tiny cafes where locals argued passionately about football over espresso. But it was in a small coastal town outside Rome where I had the conversation that changed my perspective on everything. I was sitting in a seaside restaurant, sketching the harbor view, when an elderly Italian woman at the next table struck up a conversation. You are American? She asked in heavily accented English. Yes. From Chicago. Ah, Chicago. I have grandson there. You are here alone? Yes. She looked at me with curiosity. Is not common woman alone in Italy. You are brave or you are running away. The directness of the question caught me off guard. Maybe both. She laughed. Good answer. I am Rosa. I own this restaurant 50 years with my husband. He died 3 years ago. I'm sorry. Don't be sorry. We have beautiful life together. But when he die, everyone tell me to sell restaurant, move to Rome with my daughter. They say I am too old, too weak to run business alone. But you didn't sell. Of course not. This restaurant is my life. My work. My independence. You know what I learn? When people tell you what you cannot do, usually is because they are afraid of what you can do. Her words stayed with me for the rest of the trip. When I returned to Chicago, tanned and refreshed and more confident than I had ever been, I found that the world had kept turning in interesting ways. Thomas called me from the airport. You're going to want to sit down for this. What happened? Robert's been arrested. For what? The state attorney general's office opened an investigation into his billing practices after our lawsuit became public. Turns out, he wasn't just overbilling clients, he was also filing false tax returns based on the inflated income. Tax fraud. That was a federal crime. He's been charged with wire fraud, tax evasion, and money laundering, Thomas continued. He's looking at serious prison time if he's convicted. I should have felt satisfaction, but mostly I felt tired. What does this mean for our lawsuit? It means we'll probably get everything we asked for and more. His assets are being frozen, but intellectual property damages get priority in bankruptcy proceedings. When I got home, my house felt like a sanctuary after 2 weeks of hotels. James had been checking on it while I was gone, and he had left flowers in the kitchen with a note that said, "Welcome home." I called him immediately. "Thank you for the flowers. How was Italy?" "Life-changing. Can you come over? I have so much to tell you." That evening, as we sat in my garden with wine and cheese I had brought back from Rome, I told James about Rosa and her restaurant. "She made me realize something," I said. "All my life, people have been telling me what I couldn't do. I was too quiet, too boring, too ordinary. I couldn't keep a man interested. I couldn't succeed on my own. I couldn't be happy without their approval. And now I know they were wrong. About all of it." James reached for my hand. "I've been thinking while you were gone." "About what?" "About us. About what we're building together." My heart skipped a beat. We had been slowly moving towards something more than friendship, but neither of us had named it yet. "I know you're still figuring out who you are after your divorce," he said carefully. "And I don't want to rush you into anything. But I want you to know that I'm falling in love with you." The old me would have panicked at those words. Would have worried about whether I was ready, whether I deserved love, whether I was enough for someone like James. But the woman who had just spent 2 weeks traveling solo through Italy, who had rebuilt her life from nothing, who had fought for her rights and won, that woman knew exactly what she wanted. "I'm falling in love with you too," I said. James smiled, that slow, genuine smile that had first caught my attention in the hiking group. "Good," he said. "Because I was hoping we could build something real together." Real. That was exactly what this felt like. Not the performance I had put on in my marriage trying to be what Robert wanted. Not the careful facade I had maintained with my family, trying to earn their approval. This was honest and straightforward and based on who I actually was, not who I thought I should be. The next morning brought news that would have once devastated me but now barely registered as a blip in my happiness. My mother called from yet another number I didn't recognize. "Zara, please don't hang up." I almost did anyway, but something in her voice stopped me. "What do you want?" "Robert was arrested yesterday. It's all over the local news. She's in bad shape." "I'm not surprised. The reporters are calling us, asking for comments about the family connection to Robert. About how the divorce led to the investigation. And we told them we have no comment. That we support you completely. Too little too late. But I appreciated the gesture." "I'm glad to hear that. Zara, I know we made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. We chose the wrong side and we hurt you when we should have protected you." "Yes, you did. Can you ever forgive us?" I thought about Rosa's restaurant, about the life she had built through her own determination. I thought about the woman I had become over the past year, strong and independent and sure of my own worth. "Maybe someday," I said honestly. "But not today. And not anytime soon." "I understand. I hope you do. Because I'm done making myself smaller so other people can feel better about their choices." After I hung up, I realized that the conversation hadn't upset me at all. A year ago, my mother's call would have sent me into an emotional tailspin, second-guessing my decisions and wondering if I should forgive and forget for the sake of family peace. Now I felt nothing but calm certainty. I had drawn my boundaries clearly and kindly. Whether my family respected those boundaries was up to them, but either way I would be fine. That afternoon, Thomas called with the final settlement details. Robert would pay me $80,000 in intellectual property damages, plus attorney fees. The money from the divorce settlement was already in my account, and this would give me more financial security than I had ever imagined. "What will you do with it all?" Thomas asked. I thought about Rosa's restaurant, about the independence she had fought to maintain. "I think I'm going to start my own design firm," I said. It wasn't something I had planned, but as soon as I said it, I knew it was exactly right. I had been working for other people my entire career, making their visions reality instead of pursuing my own. Maybe it was time to see what I could build when I was the one making the decisions. 6 months later, I was sitting in my own office, a bright, modern space in a converted warehouse downtown, when Linda from my old job called. "Zara, I have a proposition for you." "I'm listening." "We lost the Morrison account. They said our designs were too conservative, not innovative enough. Their exact words were that they needed someone with fresh perspective and bold creativity." I smiled, remembering how many times Linda had rejected my more creative concepts as too risky. "That's too bad." They specifically asked if we knew any independent designers who might be willing to take on the project. "Your name came up." "From whom?" "Patricia Williams referred you." Apparently you made quite an impression. Patricia Williams. After our lunch meeting about Robert's fraud, she had become an unexpected mentor. She referred clients to my new firm and gave me advice on running a business. She had even invested a small amount as a silent partner when I was getting started. What's the project? I asked. Linda explained the scope of work. It was exactly the kind of project I loved: complex, creative, with room for innovation. And the budget was 3 times what I had made in a year at my old job. I'll need to see the brief before I commit, I said. Of course. Can we meet tomorrow? Actually, why don't you come here? I'd love to show you the studio. When Linda arrived the next day, I could see her surprise at what I had built. My studio occupied the entire second floor of the building, with huge windows that filled the space with natural light. My team, I now employed 4 other designers, was working at standing desks scattered throughout the open floor plan. This is impressive, Linda said. Thank you. We've been busy. I heard you won the design award for the Hartley campaign. We did. The Hartley campaign had been my first major success as an independent designer. The client had given me complete creative freedom, and the resulting work had been unlike anything I had ever done before: bold, innovative, and entirely my own vision. Linda, I said as we sat in my office, can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you ever give me projects like this when I worked for you? She looked uncomfortable. Honestly, I didn't think you had it in you. You always seemed so careful, reluctant to take risks. I was, but not because I wasn't capable of more. Because I had been taught that taking risks was selfish, that standing out was attention-seeking, that my job was to support other people's visions, not develop my own. And what changed? I thought about the journey that had brought me here. The devastating dinner that revealed my family's betrayal. The divorce that had forced me to rebuild from nothing. The trip to Italy where I learned to trust my own instincts. The relationship with James that had shown me what it felt like to be valued for who I really was. I learned that the only person's approval I really needed was my own. We spent the next hour going over the Morrison project details. It was exactly the kind of work I wanted to be doing: challenging, creative, and meaningful. By the time Linda left, I was already sketching initial concepts. That evening, James and I were cooking dinner together when my phone rang. Unknown number, but I recognized the area code. Let it go to voicemail, James said, seeing my expression. I should probably answer it. It might be important. Hello? Zara? This is Robert. I nearly dropped the phone. Robert's voice was different, smaller, more uncertain than I remembered. How did you get this number? I called your office. Your assistant gave it to me when I said it was urgent. I made a mental note to have a conversation with my assistant about screening calls. What do you want, Robert? I'm calling from prison. I know. You know? Your arrest was in the newspapers, Robert. Ann Thomas kept me informed about your legal proceedings. Silence on the other end of the line. I wanted to apologize, he said finally. For which part? All of it. The affair. The lies. Stealing your work. Everything. Okay. That's it? Just okay? I looked at James, who was watching me with concern and support. Behind him, I could see the life we were building together: the kitchen we had renovated, the plans for our weekend trip to visit his parents, the comfortable domesticity that came from 2 people who chose each other freely and honestly. What else did you expect me to say? I don't know. I thought. I hoped maybe we could talk. Really talk. About what? About us. About what went wrong. About whether there's any chance. Any chance of what? Of working things out. Starting over. I actually laughed. Robert, you're calling me from prison. You're serving a 3-year sentence for fraud. You cheated on me with my sister for a year. You stole my work and profited from it. What exactly do you think we would be starting over from? I know I made mistakes. You didn't make mistakes. You made choices. A long series of deliberate, calculated choices to deceive and betray everyone who trusted you. I was confused. I was going through something I didn't understand. No, you were being selfish and dishonest. There's a difference. Another long silence. I heard about your business, he said quietly. What about it? That it's doing well. That you're successful. I am. I always knew you were talented. No, you didn't. You spent our entire marriage convincing me that I wasn't good enough, that I needed to be more like other people, that my ideas weren't worth pursuing. I was wrong. Yes, you were. Zara, I know you probably hate me, but I want you to know that I'm proud of what you've accomplished. The words hit me in an unexpected way. Once upon a time, Robert's approval had been everything to me. I had craved his praise, his acknowledgement, his validation of my worth. Now I felt nothing but mild annoyance that he thought his opinion mattered to me. Your pride in my accomplishments is irrelevant to me, I said calmly. I didn't build this life for your approval. I know. I just wanted you to know that I realize what I lost. You didn't lose me, Robert. You threw me away. There's a difference. Is there any chance you could forgive me? Someday? I thought about forgiveness, about what it meant and what it was for. Forgiveness wasn't about excusing someone's behavior or pretending it didn't hurt. It wasn't about reconciliation or giving someone another chance to hurt you. Forgiveness was about letting go of the anger so it didn't poison your own life. I forgave you a long time ago, I said. Not for your sake but for mine. But forgiveness doesn't mean I want you in my life. I understand. I hope you do. And I hope you use this time in prison to figure out who you want to be when you get out. Because the person you were when I was married to you wasn't someone worth knowing. I hung up and turned to James, who wrapped me in his arms without saying anything. He knew I would talk when I was ready. How do you feel? He asked finally. Relieved, I said, surprising myself with the answer. I thought hearing from him might upset me, but mostly I just feel free. Free how? Free from any lingering doubt about whether I made the right choice. Free from wondering if I was too harsh or too unforgiving. Free from any guilt about how his life turned out. James kissed the top of my head. Good. You deserve to be free. That night, as we lay in bed in the house that was entirely mine, I thought about the conversation with Robert. A year ago, that phone call would have sent me into an emotional spiral. I would have questioned my decisions, wondered if I should give him another chance, felt guilty about his suffering. Now I felt nothing but certainty that I had made the right choices every step of the way. Robert was facing the consequences of his actions. Natalie was dealing with the aftermath of her betrayal. My parents were living with the knowledge that they had chosen wrongly. And I was building a life I loved with a man who saw me clearly and valued me completely. Justice, it turned out, wasn't about punishment or revenge. It was about everyone getting exactly what they deserved. 1 year after the phone call from Robert, James proposed to me on the hiking trail where we first met. I know you've been burned by marriage before, he said as we stood at the overlook where our group always stopped for water breaks. And I know you don't need anyone to complete you or make you whole. You're already both of those things. But, he smiled. But I love the life we've built together and I want to make it official. I want to be your partner in everything, the business, the adventures, the quiet Sunday mornings, all of it. The proposal was so perfectly James, thoughtful, honest, and focused on partnership rather than rescue or completion. He wasn't asking me to give up my independence. He was asking me to share it. Yes, I said, not needing to think about it for even a second. Really? Really? He slipped the ring onto my finger, and it fit perfectly just like everything else about our relationship. The ring itself was perfect too. Not the massive diamond that Robert had chosen to show off his earning potential, but a vintage Art Deco design with a sapphire center stone surrounded by small diamonds. It was unique, beautiful, and entirely my style. How did you know? I asked, admiring how it caught the light. I pay attention to you, he said simply. That evening we called both sets of parents to share the news. James's parents were thrilled, asking immediately about wedding dates and celebrating with champagne over video chat. My parents? Well, I didn't call my parents. James noticed the omission but didn't comment on it. He understood that some relationships couldn't be repaired, and he didn't pressure me to try. 3 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Old-fashioned paper and envelope, my name written in my mother's careful handwriting. Dear Zara, it began, we heard about your engagement through Mrs. Chen, who saw the announcement in the newspaper. We want you to know that we're happy for you. The letter was short and formal, nothing like the rambling, emotional emails she used to send when she was trying to manipulate me into forgiveness. This was different, respectful, boundaried, appropriate. We know we have no right to ask to be part of your wedding, she continued, but we want you to know that we would be honored if you chose to include us. If not, we understand completely and we wish you every happiness. I showed the letter to James over breakfast. How does it make you feel? He asked. Sad, I said, surprising myself. Not angry anymore, just sad. Sad about what? About everything we lost. About the family we could have been if they had made different choices. Do you want them at the wedding? I don't know. Part of me does, and part of me thinks it's too late. There's no rush to decide. I loved that about James, his ability to let me work through complicated emotions without trying to fix or rush the process. 2 days later, I ran into Natalie at the coffee shop near my office. She looked healthier than she had the last time I saw her, hair washed, makeup applied, clothes that fit properly. But there was something different about her expression. Less defiant, more uncertain. "Zara," she said as we ended up in line next to each other. Could we talk for a minute?" I almost said no. But something about her tone stopped me. "5 minutes," I said. We sat at a small table in the corner. Natalie fidgeted with her coffee cup, not meeting my eyes. "I heard about your engagement," she said finally. "Okay. I wanted to congratulate you. And to apologize. Again. But differently this time." "Differently how?" She looked up at me, and for the first time in years, I saw my sister instead of the woman who had betrayed me. "I've been in therapy," she said. "A lot of therapy. Trying to understand why I made such terrible choices." "And what did you learn?" "That I was jealous of you. That I always felt like you were the good daughter, the one who did everything right, and I was the screw-up. I thought if I could take something that was yours, it would prove that I was better. So you took my husband." "I took your husband," she agreed quietly. "And I destroyed our relationship and your marriage and my own self-respect in the process." We sat in silence for a moment. "I'm not asking for forgiveness," she said. "I know I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I understand what I did and I hate myself for it." "Don't hate yourself," I said, surprising both of us. "It won't help anything. How can you say that after what I did to you?" I thought about Rosa's restaurant, about the wisdom she had shared with me about people trying to limit what you could do. "Because hating yourself is just another way to avoid taking responsibility," I said. "Instead of hating yourself, become someone who would never make those choices again." Natalie started crying, but they were different tears than I had seen from her before. Not manipulative or self-pitying, but genuine remorse. "I'm trying," she whispered. "Good. Or would it be possible for me to come to your wedding?" I understand if the answer is no, but I wanted to ask. I looked at my sister, really looked at her for the first time in 2 years. She looked smaller somehow, like the experience had stripped away the arrogance that had always surrounded her. "I'll think about it," I said. And I meant it. That night I talked it through with James. "What would it mean to you to have them there?" he asked. "I don't know. Maybe closure. Maybe a chance to show them who I've become. Maybe just a way to prove to myself that I'm strong enough to have them there without it affecting my happiness. Then invite them. Just like that. Just like that. It's your wedding, Zara. You get to decide who belongs there." So I did. I called my parents and told them they were welcome at the wedding with conditions. They would not be involved in planning. They would not bring drama or try to use the occasion to repair our relationship. They would be respectful guests, nothing more. They agreed immediately. I also called Natalie and extended the same invitation with the same conditions. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I promise I won't do anything to ruin your day." "I know you won't," I said. "Because if you did, it would be the last time you'd ever have the opportunity to be in my life." She understood. 2 months later, on a perfect May afternoon, I married James in the garden behind our house. The ceremony was small, just 50 people who truly mattered to us. My parents sat in the back, quiet and respectful. Natalie sat with them, tears streaming down her face as she watched me say vows to a man who loved me exactly as I was. Patricia Williams was there, beaming with pride at what I had accomplished. Simone flew in from California to be my maid of honor. My hiking group formed an honor guard with their walking sticks as James and I walked back down the aisle. But the moment that mattered most was when James and I stood face to face, promising to build a life together based on honesty, respect, and genuine partnership. "I love who you are," he said in his vows. "Not who you think you should be, not who anyone else wants you to be, but exactly who you are right now, in this moment. I love that you see me clearly and value what you see," I said in mine. "I love that we're choosing each other freely, without desperation or need, but because we want to share our already full lives with each other." When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, the kiss we shared felt like the beginning of something beautiful rather than the completion of something missing. At the reception, my mother approached me carefully. "You look radiant," she said. "Thank you. I can see how happy you are. How confident. I know I had nothing to do with the woman you've become, but I'm proud of you anyway." It was the first time she had acknowledged her role in our estrangement without trying to minimize it or ask for immediate forgiveness. "I appreciate that," I said. "Maybe someday we could have lunch. When you're ready. If you're ever ready." "Maybe someday," I agreed. It wasn't a promise, but it wasn't a rejection either. It was simply honesty about where we stood. Later that evening, as James and I danced to our first song as husband and wife, I looked around at the celebration we had created. Everyone there genuinely cared about us. Everyone there had earned their place in our lives through respect and loyalty. It was nothing like the wedding I had imagined when I was married to Robert that had been about putting on a show, impressing other people, meeting expectations. This was about joy. Pure, uncomplicated joy. No regrets. James whispered in my ear as we swayed to the music. None whatsoever, I whispered back. And I meant it. Every painful step that had led me to this moment had been worth it. 5 years after that devastating dinner at my parents' house, I was sitting in my office reviewing the final contracts for the biggest project my firm had ever landed, a complete brand redesign for a Fortune 500 company, when my assistant knocked on my door. There's someone here to see you, she said. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's important. Who is it? He wouldn't give his name. Just said he was an old friend and that you'd want to hear what he has to say. I almost told her to send him away, but something about her expression made me curious. Send him in. A moment later, a man I didn't recognize walked into my office. He was middle-aged, well-dressed, with nervous energy and darting eyes. Ms. Johnson, I mean Mrs. Mitchell, he said. Thank you for seeing me. I'm sorry, have we met? Not exactly. My name is David Sterling. I was Robert's cellmate for the last 6 months of his sentence. My blood went cold. Robert had been released from prison 8 months ago, and I had successfully avoided any contact with him since that phone call 3 years earlier. What do you want? I asked, my voice sharper than I intended. Robert asked me to deliver a message to you. I'm not interested in messages from Robert. Please just hear me out. He's not doing well. Despite myself, I felt a flicker of curiosity. What do you mean? He can't get work. His reputation is destroyed. He's living in a studio apartment and working part-time at a coffee shop. But that's not why he sent me. Then why? Sterling shifted uncomfortably. He wanted me to tell you about a conversation we had. About what he learned in prison. I don't care what he learned. He said to tell you that he finally understands what he threw away. That he spent 3 years thinking about the woman you were when he was married to you, and the woman you've become since. He said he realizes now that you were never the problem he was. I stared at Sterling, trying to process what he was telling me. He wanted me to tell you that you were right about everything. About him being selfish and dishonest. About him making deliberate choices to hurt you. About him not deserving forgiveness. Okay, I said carefully. And he wanted me to tell you that he's proud of what you've built. That seeing your success from a distance has been the only good thing in his life since he got out. That's nice, but I still don't understand why you're here. Sterling reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He wanted me to give you this. I stared at the envelope but didn't reach for it. What is it? I don't know. He said it wasn't a letter asking for anything. Just something he needed you to have. I took the envelope reluctantly. My name was written on the front in Robert's familiar handwriting. That's it? I asked. That's it. He made me promise not to tell you where he's living or how to contact him. He said he didn't want to intrude on your life any more than necessary. After Sterling left, I sat staring at the envelope for 20 minutes. Every instinct told me to throw it away unopened. Whatever Robert had to say, I didn't need to hear it. But curiosity won out. Inside was a single sheet of paper and a cashier's check. The check was made out to me for $25,000. The letter was brief. Zara, this money represents my best estimate of what I stole from you during our marriage, not just the intellectual property, but the joint account withdrawals, the credit card purchases for Natalie, all of it. I know it doesn't come close to covering the emotional damage I caused, but it's everything I've been able to save since getting out of prison. I'm not asking for forgiveness or contact. I just needed to try to make this one small thing right. I hope you never have to think about me again. Robert. I stared at the check for a long time, trying to figure out how I felt about it. The money would have meant everything to me 5 years ago when I was struggling to rebuild my life. Now, it was significant but not life-changing. My business was successful, James and I were financially secure, and we had built a good life together. But the gesture itself, Robert working a minimum wage job for months to save this money, tracking down my office address, finding a way to get it to me without intruding on my life, that meant something. Not forgiveness. Not reconciliation. But acknowledgement that actions have consequences, and sometimes those consequences include trying to make amends even when it's too late to matter. I called James to tell him about the visit and the check. How do you feel about it? He asked. Honestly? Indifferent. It doesn't change anything about what happened or how I feel about him. But I think it was probably something he needed to do for his own peace of mind. Are you going to keep the money? I'm going to donate it to a women's shelter. Let some good come from it. That evening, over dinner at our favorite restaurant, James and I talked about the future. We had been trying to have children for 6 months, and I had found out that morning that our latest attempt had been successful. How are you feeling about it? James asked, his hand covering mine on the table. Terrified and excited in equal measure. Me too. Do you think we'll be good parents? I think we'll be honest parents. We'll make mistakes, but we'll own up to them. We'll apologize when we need to. We'll show our kids what a healthy relationship looks like. I thought about my own parents, about the example they had set of conditional love and divided loyalties. About the way they had taught me that my worth was dependent on being what other people needed me to be. I want to do better than that, I said. We will. 6 months later, I was 8 months pregnant and glowing with health and happiness when I got a phone call that surprised me. Zara? It's Natalie. We had maintained polite but distant contact since the wedding. Christmas cards, brief conversations at family funerals, the kind of surface-level relationship that acknowledged our shared history without pretending we were close. Hi Natalie. How are you? I'm good. I'm engaged. Congratulations. Thank you. His name is Michael and he's nothing like Robert. He's kind and honest and patient with all my baggage. I'm happy for you. I wanted to call because Mom told me about the baby. I know we're not sisters the way we used to be. But I wanted you to know that I'm excited about being an aunt. The word, aunt, hit me unexpectedly hard. I had been so focused on protecting myself from further hurt that I hadn't considered what it would mean for my child to have extended family. Thank you, I said quietly. I don't expect anything, Natalie continued quickly. I know I have no right to be part of your family after what I did. But I wanted you to know that if you ever decide you want your child to know me, I would be honored. I'll think about it. That's all I can ask for. After we hung up, I sat in the nursery. James and I had been preparing, thinking about family and forgiveness and the kind of life I wanted to build for my child. I didn't trust Natalie completely. I probably never would. But I could see that she had done real work to become a better person, just as I had done real work to become stronger and more independent. Maybe there was room in my life for a carefully boundaried relationship with the sister I used to know. My daughter was born on a sunny Tuesday morning in September. We named her Sophia Rose, Sophia for wisdom, Rose for the Italian woman who had taught me to fight for my independence. As I held her in my arms for the first time, looking at this perfect little person James and I had created together, I felt overwhelmed with gratitude for the journey that had brought me to this moment. Without Robert's betrayal, I never would have learned how strong I was. Without my family's abandonment, I never would have discovered that I didn't need their approval to be happy. Without losing everything I thought I wanted, I never would have built everything I actually needed. She's beautiful, James whispered, stroking Sophia's tiny hand. She's perfect. Just like her mother. I smiled at him, this man who had seen me at my most broken and loved me back to wholeness. Who had supported my dreams and celebrated my successes and never once tried to make me smaller so he could feel bigger. I love you, I said. I love you too. Both of you. As Sophia slept peacefully in my arms, I thought about the story I would tell her someday about how I became the woman she would know as her mother. About the dinner that changed everything, about the courage it took to walk away from people who didn't value me, about the strength I found in building a life entirely my own. But mostly I would tell her about the importance of knowing her own worth, of never settling for less than she deserved, of choosing people who saw her clearly and loved what they saw. I would tell her that sometimes the worst thing that happens to you becomes the catalyst for the best thing that ever happens to you. And I would tell her that she was the best thing that had ever happened to me and James, the perfect ending to a story that had begun with such pain but had led us to such incredible joy. Outside our hospital room window, the sun was setting over the city where I had rebuilt my life from nothing. Tomorrow we would take Sophia home to the house that was entirely ours, where she would grow up surrounded by love and honesty and the kind of security that comes from being chosen and valued exactly as you are. It was the happy ending I had never dared to dream of when I pushed back my chair from that dinner table 5 years ago. But it was better than any ending I could have imagined because it was real, and it was mine, and I had earned every moment of it.